In 1932, an unemployed janitor in Vermont started buying one share of stock every few months with whatever he could set aside. He kept doing it quietly for over 60 years. When he died in 2014 at age 92, his neighbors found out he'd left behind an $8 million estate. Nobody in that town had any idea. The method he used sits at number 8 on this list, and you could open the account for it tonight. These aren't secrets. They're habits that used to be common knowledge, the kind of thing passed across a kitchen table, not taught in a finance class. Somewhere in the last 50 years, most of them quietly disappeared, not because they stopped working, because they stopped making anyone else money. Let's get into it. Number 12, the envelope system. Before debit cards, this is how most American households ran their money. The paycheck came in cash or got cashed immediately, and it got physically divided. Rent, groceries, utilities, savings into labeled envelopes. When an envelope was empty, spending in that category stopped. No moving money between them, no exceptions. Here's what made it work. It made spending physical. You could feel an envelope getting thin. That sensation is exactly what modern payment methods removed on purpose. In the 1950s and 60s, the US personal savings rate averaged around 9% a year. Today, it sits at roughly 2.6%. That's not a coincidence of income. It's a difference in whether people could feel their money leaving. The envelope method never stopped working. It just stopped being visible. Number 11, buying tools instead of paying for labor. A basic wrench set or soldering iron in the 1940s and 50s cost a day or two of wages, but it replaced dozens of future service calls. The math was simple. A tool that costs $10 and saves you a $60 repair call has paid for itself the first time you use it, and every use after that is pure savings. Homeowners in that era treated a toolbox less like a hobby and more like an asset. Today, Americans collectively spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on basic home services. Plumbing, minor repairs, simple maintenance, that a $30 toolkit and a 10-minute video could often handle. Number 10, buying in bulk during harvest and off-season. Your grandparents didn't buy canned vegetables at winter prices. They bought produce in bulk when it was cheapest, often at the peak of a growing season, and preserved it to last through the months when the same items cost multiples more at the store. The same logic applies today to buying meat directly from a local farm or rancher in bulk. It routinely runs well below the per-pound price of the same cuts at a supermarket, especially for premium cuts like ribeye. It requires upfront cash and some storage space, which is exactly why it rewards people who plan a season ahead instead of a week ahead. Number 9, the layaway mindset. Before credit cards took over consumer retail in the 1970s, layaway was one of the most common ways Americans bought things they couldn't yet afford in full. You picked the item, the store held it in the back, and you paid it off in small installments. Only when the balance hit zero did you take it home. No interest charged, no debt created, and if you changed your mind halfway through, you simply got your payments back and walked away. The purchase never happened. That built-in delay is what made it powerful. It physically prevented impulse buying because there was no way to have the item and still be paying for it. Credit cards flip that completely. Take the item home today, feel the cost months later. Retailers quickly learned that customers who paid on credit spent significantly more per trip than layaway customers ever did, which is exactly why the format got phased out of most major retailers over time. Some stores still offer layaway programs seasonally, and the principle behind it, don't take possession until it's paid for, remains one of the simplest debt prevention habits that exists. Number 8, dividend reinvestment, the trick that made the janitor rich. Starting in the 1960s, major companies began offering shareholders a simple option. Instead of taking your quarterly dividend as cash, automatically reinvest it into more shares of the same stock, often with no broker fee. Every reinvested dividend buys a few more shares, and those new shares generate their own dividends the next quarter. The snowball compounds on itself for decades. The real numbers back this up. A $2,000 investment in Pepsi in 1980, fully reinvested through a drip, would have grown to over 2,800 shares worth more than $150,000 by 2004. A $10,000 position in an S&P 500 index fund from 1960 with dividends reinvested would be worth well over $1 million by 2024 from price growth alone, before even counting the reinvested dividend shares themselves. That Vermont janitor did exactly this with a handful of blue chip companies for over 60 straight years and never sold a single share. Drips still exist at most major companies today. Almost nobody uses them anymore. Number 7, cash negotiation. Paying with cash used to come with a built-in discount almost everywhere. Furniture stores, car lots, even some doctors' offices, because cash was immediate and certain, and sellers valued that enough to shave the price. Surveys from that era found Americans who paid cash on major purchases saved somewhere in the range of 12 to 15% compared to buyers using installment credit. That leverage hasn't disappeared. It's just rarely used because fixed pricing and card payments made negotiating feel socially awkward instead of normal. Number 6, renting out a spare room. Census data from 1950 shows nearly 10% of American households had at least one paying boarder living with them, someone renting a spare room, often covering a meaningful chunk of the mortgage. It was treated as completely ordinary. As homes got bigger and privacy became the priority through the 60s and 70s, the practice faded out almost entirely. Today, the same basic idea has come back through short-term rental platforms, where hosts renting out spare space average roughly $14,000 a year in supplemental income. The math didn't change. The willingness to share space did. Number 5, fixing and reselling. A broken radio, a wobbly chair, a bike with a flat. Items that most people today would simply throw away used to be treated as discounted opportunities instead of trash. Buy it cheap because it's broken. Fix the one small thing wrong with it. Resell it for several times what you paid. The margin exists specifically because most people won't spend 20 minutes learning the fix. That exact same gap is what powers a large share of the modern resale economy on platforms like Facebook Marketplace today. A $20 thrift store find, cleaned and repaired, routinely resells for many multiples of its purchase price. Number 4, buying tax liens at county auction. This one almost nobody knows still exists. When a property owner falls behind on their taxes, the county sells off the right to collect that debt at a public auction, a tax lien certificate. Whoever wins the bid pays the back taxes on the owner's behalf and in return earns statutory interest. Commonly in the 8 to 16% range depending on the state, once the owner eventually pays it off. Only a small fraction of liens, roughly 1 to 2%, ever result in the bidder actually acquiring the property itself. Most owners pay up during the redemption period. But as an interest-earning investment secured against real estate, it's a strategy that's existed since the 1800s and is still fully public and open to anyone. Every county publishes its auction schedule. Almost nobody outside a small circle of investors ever checks it. Number 3, buying used cars on purpose. A new car loses a significant chunk of its value, commonly cited around 20 to 25% the moment it's driven off the lot. Buying a car that's a few years old means someone else already absorbed that drop. Across a family's lifetime, consistently choosing reliable used vehicles over new ones can free up the equivalent of a serious chunk of a home down payment, simply by redirecting what would have gone to depreciation into savings or paying down a mortgage instead. Number 2, house hacking with a duplex. After World War II, buying a small duplex, living in one unit, and renting out the other was a common and almost unremarkable strategy, especially with low down payment veteran loans available at the time. The rental income from the second unit frequently covered most or all of the mortgage, meaning the family lived close to free while still building home equity every month. Some families repeated the process, buying a second and third property the same way, building a small rental portfolio without ever touching a pension or retirement account. The strategy still works today in plenty of markets where multi-unit properties remain reasonably priced. It never required luck. It required a duplex and patience. Number 1, paying off the house early on purpose. This was the target every other habit on this list was quietly funding. In the mid-20th century, it was common for families to aim for a 15 to 20-year mortgage instead of stretching it out, making extra principal payments specifically to shorten the term rather than lower the monthly bill. The day the mortgage was paid off, some families literally burned the paperwork as a small celebration, because from that day forward, every dollar that used to go to the bank stayed in the household. A 30-year mortgage today means decades more interest paid to a lender. A shorter mortgage means decades more money staying with the family that earned it. Every single trick on this list shares the same underlying principle. Spend less than you have. Make what you already own work harder. Never pay for something you can learn to do yourself. None of these were complicated financial strategies. They were habits repeated so consistently they became automatic. Pick one from this list. Just one. Start it this week. Which one are you trying first? Drop the number in the comments.